When I pulled into the gravel driveway of my Big Bear cabin after a year away, I knew something was wrong immediately. The wallpaper visible through the living room window looked different, brighter, fresher. That wallpaper was the last thing my wife Margaret had chosen before she passed. I'd built this place with my own hands 20 years ago, and I knew every detail by heart. My name's Garrett Morrison. I'm 58, and I spent 30 years in construction before retiring early last year. After Margaret died, I couldn't stand being in our main house in Riverside. Too many memories. So I'd been staying with my sister in Arizona, trying to figure out what came next. This was my first trip back to the cabin since Margaret's funeral. The drive up had always calmed my nerves. 2 hours of winding mountain roads, pine trees getting thicker as you climbed higher. Margaret and I had made this trip hundreds of times since I finished building the place in 2003. Now, driving alone, the silence felt heavier than the mountain air. I sat in my truck for a moment, staring at that window. The wallpaper pattern was right. Margaret's delicate roses on cream background that she'd picked for our 15th anniversary. But the colors were all wrong. Too bright, too fresh. The original had faded after years of afternoon sun streaming through those windows. Getting out of the truck, I noticed other things. The lawn was mowed neat and professional. I'd canceled the landscaping service 6 months ago when money got tight. The walkway I'd laid myself was swept clean, no pine needles or debris. My hand shook as I turned the key. It moved too smoothly. Should have been sticky after sitting unused for a year. Inside, the air smelled fresh instead of musty. No dust on the entry table I'd built from leftover oak flooring. That's when it really hit me. Someone had been living in my house. I called my son Braden. 4 rings, then voicemail. "Braden, it's Dad. I'm at the cabin. Call me back. We need to talk." My voice came out rougher than I intended. Braden was 35, an electrician like his grandfather, but he'd been out of work for 8 months now. His wife Skylar Morrison had a marketing job that barely covered their bills. In the kitchen, everything looked normal except the refrigerator was humming. I'd unplugged it last year. Inside, I found fresh food, milk, cheese, leftovers in containers I didn't recognize. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. My son and daughter-in-law had been using my cabin without telling me. But that wasn't what bothered me most. What bothered me was the secrecy. And why replace wallpaper in a house you don't own? I climbed the stairs I'd framed and built myself. In the master bedroom, different sheets on the bed, cream-colored instead of the blue floral Margaret had loved. The dresser drawer was slightly open. Inside, women's clothes, size 6, Skylar's size. That's when I remembered the security cameras. After some teenagers broke in 3 years ago, Margaret insisted we install hidden cameras throughout the house. "People act different when they don't know they're being watched," she'd said. I thought it was overkill then. Now I was grateful. I sat on the bed and pulled up the app on my phone. My construction-roughened hands weren't great with technology, but I managed to scroll back 3 months. The room felt smaller as I selected the living room camera and hit play. For hours, nothing. Just afternoon light shifting across the empty room I'd paneled with knotty pine. Then at 6:47 p.m. on August 15th, the front door opened. Braden entered first, but not the confident man I'd raised. He moved with nervous energy, constantly looking over his shoulder. His face was pale, drawn tight with stress. Behind him came Skylar, equally tense. She carried something heavy wrapped in blue tarp, about 4 feet long. They didn't speak, just exchanged sharp looks like they'd rehearsed this. Skylar rushed to the window, scanning outside with white knuckles gripping the curtain. She was terrified. Braden set down his end of the bundle and approached the wall where I was seeing the fresh wallpaper. He pulled out a utility knife, one of mine from the tool chest I kept here. He made a careful cut in Margaret's wallpaper, the paper she'd hung with such care for our anniversary. Watching him peel it back and cut into the drywall I'd hung made my chest tight. He was opening a hole between the studs about 2 feet square. Dust drifted to the floor as he worked with the precision I'd taught him years ago in my workshop. When the cavity was ready, they struggled to lift their bundle. Whatever was inside that tarp was heavier than they'd expected. For a moment I thought Braden would drop it, but he angled it carefully and pushed it into the wall cavity. It disappeared completely into the darkness between my studs. Over the next 3 days, Braden returned alone with supplies. He patched the hole with drywall compound, sanded it smooth, primed and painted. Then he rehung wallpaper across the entire wall. Professional work. I taught him well, and he'd used those skills to hide something in my house. They came back twice more in the following weeks. Both times they pressed their ears to the wall like they were listening for something, making sure whatever they'd hidden was still there, still intact. The thought chilled me to the bone. The most recent footage was from 5 days ago. Skylar came alone. She stood before the wall for a long time, motionless. Then she pressed her hand against it, and her shoulders shook. She was crying in my living room, touching the wall that held whatever secret was tearing my family apart. My phone buzzed, making me jump. Braden calling back. "Dad." His voice was too bright, like he was forcing cheerfulness. "Sorry, I was working on a bid. What's up?" "I'm at the cabin," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Someone's been maintaining it." A pause. "Oh yeah, Skylar and I check on it sometimes. Make sure it's okay. The wallpaper looks fresh." Another pause. Longer. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. "Dad, you're remembering wrong. That wallpaper's been there for years." I stayed calm. 30 years of supervising construction crews had taught me patience. "Braden, I know it's new. I know you've been here. I need to know why." Silence stretched thin. I could hear him breathing fast. "Dad, please," he whispered. "Please don't ask questions. Don't look. Don't—" A voice in the background, urgent. Skylar, sounding panicked. "I have to go," he said quickly. "Please forget you noticed anything. Please." The line went dead. I stared at my phone. My son had lied to me, then begged me to ignore the truth. His fear wasn't about using my cabin without permission. Something deeper was shaking his voice. Something that made him sound like the scared little boy who used to run to me when nightmares woke him. Every instinct told me to call the police. But another instinct, older and stronger, held me back. This was my son. The boy I'd taught to use tools, to measure twice and cut once, to take pride in work done right. I went to my truck and found the crowbar I always kept behind the seat. Construction sites taught you to be prepared for anything. Back inside, I faced the wall. Margaret's wallpaper looked perfect, innocent, but behind it, something was hidden that had terrified my family. "Sometimes you have to tear things down to build them right," I muttered, remembering something I'd told Braden years ago when we were building his first treehouse. I pressed the crowbar against the seam near the baseboard. The fresh adhesive popped free easily. Too easily. Professional work, but rushed. I peeled back a corner, exposing the patched drywall underneath. One strike with the crowbar, and the patch cracked like an eggshell. Braden had done good work, but I knew where the weak points would be. I reached into the dark cavity between studs I'd installed decades ago. My fingers touched something cold, smooth, plastic wrapping. I grabbed and pulled. The bundle was awkward and heavy, taking all my strength to drag it out and lower to the hardwood floor I'd installed myself. My back protested, 30 years of construction work taking its toll, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I knelt beside the bundle, breathing hard. The blue tarp was newer than what I'd seen in the footage. Under it, layers of sealed plastic. My hands shook as I unwrapped everything. Inside was a waterproof container, the kind contractors use to protect documents on job sites. I broke the seal with my pocket knife. The container opened with a soft hiss. Inside, a tablet wrapped in plastic, stacks of documents, USB drives, and a handwritten note. "Insurance. Do not destroy. Lives depend on this." Braden's handwriting, but shaky, desperate. I powered on the tablet. The battery still worked. On the home screen, one folder labeled Morrison Development Corp. My stomach dropped. Morrison Development was the biggest construction company in San Bernardino County. I knew the name because every contractor did. They'd been in the news for months with corruption allegations. The owner, Colton Hayes, was fighting fraud charges, environmental violations, bribery accusations. A billionaire developer who dominated local politics. Braden had worked there briefly as an electrical contractor before getting laid off. That's how he'd have access. I opened the folder. Spreadsheets, emails, contracts, photos of canceled checks, bank statements. Everything labeled, dated, cross-referenced like a prosecutor's dream. These weren't copies. These were originals. Documents with signatures, notarized seals, official stamps. Evidence impossible to dispute. My phone rang, startling me. Braden's name on the screen. "Dad, are you still at the cabin?" His voice was tight with panic. Yes. Oh God, did you find it? I found it. Dad, put it back. Seal the wall. Forget it existed. Braden, this is evidence of major crimes. I know, he hissed. That's why you need to hide it again. He was crying. My 35-year-old son was crying like a scared child. They're looking for it, Dad. Hayes's people. I documented everything because my supervisor told me to. Then he died in a car accident. Accident. And my apartment got broken into twice. Nothing stolen, just searched. You went to the police? We tried. Got a lawyer, a good one. He reviewed everything and said people with Hayes's money don't fall easily. Then the lawyer had a heart attack. He was 52 and ran marathons. A sound outside froze my blood. Footsteps on my gravel driveway. I moved to the window I'd installed myself. A black SUV idled beside my truck. 2 men in dark suits stood on the porch I'd built. Dad, Braden whispered through the phone. Are you there? 2 men. Black SUV? He started hyperventilating. Oh no, they must have been monitoring calls. Dad, you need to leave now. The doorbell rang. Then heavy knocking. Mr. Morrison, a smooth voice called. We know you're in there. We just want to talk. Don't answer, Braden sobbed. Dad, please. I looked at the evidence spread across my floor. My son had risked everything to expose corruption. 2 people who'd tried to help were dead. Now Hayes's people stood at the door of the house I'd built with my own hands. An old instinct from my army days kicked in. When outnumbered and outgunned, you don't stand and fight. You take what matters and move. I grabbed the waterproof container and ran for the basement stairs I'd built 20 years ago. Behind me, the front door splintered. Heavy footsteps crossed the floor above. Mr. Morrison, we don't want trouble. Just need to ask about your son. The basement was dark, but I knew every inch. Past my workbench, around boxes of Christmas decorations Margaret had organized years ago. I reached the bulkhead stairs leading outside. The door resisted, swollen with mountain moisture, but 30 years of construction work had given me strong shoulders. I threw my weight against it. The bulkhead gave way with a shriek of hinges. Cool evening air hit my face as footsteps pounded down the basement stairs behind me. I ran across the back lawn toward the tree line. When had I last run like this? 15 years? 20? My body had forgotten how, but muscle memory from Army basic training kicked in. When you're hunted, you move. Behind me, shouts, the bulkhead crashing open, footsteps pursuing. I reached the woods and plunged into underbrush, branches tearing at my clothes. The container felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My shoulders screamed, my knees sent bolts of pain up my legs, but I kept going. For Braden, for my grandchildren. The footsteps behind me slowed. They were tracking now, taking their time. I was 58, carrying a heavy load. They were younger, probably in better shape. But they didn't know these woods like I did. Margaret and I had hiked every trail around Big Bear for 20 years. I knew where the creek ran, where the old logging roads cut through to the highway. Her voice echoed in my memory. This trail leads to the creek. I changed direction toward the sound of running water. Water would mask my footsteps in scent. The creek appeared, silver in fading light. I splashed across, soaking my work boots, and climbed the opposite bank. Behind me, very close. Mr. Morrison, this is foolish. We're not going to hurt you. I kept moving, using trees for support, forcing my aging body forward. Just a little farther. Through the trees, I saw headlights on the road. I crashed through the last brush and stumbled onto asphalt. A sheriff's patrol car pulled to a stop, roof lights flashing. A young deputy got out, hand on his holster. Sir, you okay? We got a 911 call about a break-in. I gasped, clutching the container. Someone broke into my house. 2 men. They chased me through the woods. He spoke into his radio. Within minutes, more patrol cars arrived, the woods filled with flashlights and voices. But when they swept the forest, they found nothing. The black SUV was gone from my driveway. Deputy Martinez stood in my living room, staring at the gaping hole in the wall. Mr. Morrison, want to explain why you tore apart your own wall? I was still breathing hard, the container at my feet. Family documents. I forgot where I'd stored them. Family documents. His tone was flat. Important enough that 2 men broke into your house? My phone buzzed. A text from Braden. Don't trust local police. Hayes has connections everywhere. Don't say anything. I looked at Martinez. Young, eager, maybe 2 years out of the academy. Could I trust him? I need to make a phone call, I said. To my nephew. He's a federal prosecutor. You need a lawyer? I need to call Mason Rivers, FBI liaison in Los Angeles. Martinez hesitated, then nodded. I dialed with shaking hands. Mason answered quickly. Uncle Garrett, everything okay? Mason, I found something. Documents, evidence of fraud, maybe worse. Local police are here asking questions. What kind of documents? Financial records, emails about Morrison Development Corp., bribery, false reports, environmental violations. Wait, Colton Hayes, Uncle Garrett, do not show those to local police. Don't sign anything. Put the deputy on the phone. I handed over my phone. Mason's voice was sharp enough that I caught pieces. Federal evidence, obstruction, FBI Riverside office. 3 minutes later, Martinez returned the phone, his whole attitude transformed. Agent Brooks from Riverside is sending a team. You're to remain here with the evidence. Mason's voice in my ear. Sit tight. Don't let anyone near it. The FBI will handle this properly. 2 hours later, 3 black SUVs arrived. 6 agents stepped out, led by a woman in her 40s with steel gray hair. Mr. Morrison, I'm Special Agent Chloe Anderson. You're coming with us. The Riverside Hotel was nothing fancy. They put me in a conference room while forensic experts worked on the documents. Anderson sat across from me, a laptop open between us. We've been building a case against Hayes for 18 months, she said. Your son documented bank transfers, fake environmental reports, bribes to county officials. This could bring down Hayes and dozens of others. Relief washed through me. Braden had been helping the FBI. Then Anderson opened her laptop and turned it toward me. But there's a problem. On screen, emails from Braden to someone named Drake Industries. Payment terms, $200,000 for the full evidence package, $50,000 deposit already received. My stomach dropped. Drake Industries? Landon Brooks, Anderson said. Hayes' biggest rival for county development contracts. Your son wasn't planning to give this to authorities. He was selling it. No, Braden wouldn't. We found messages between Braden and Hayes people, too. He was auctioning the evidence to the highest bidder. Anderson clicked to another screen. A bank statement. Offshore account opened 3 months ago using your social security number and driver's license. Balance, $125,000. I didn't open that. The account was opened using your personal information, someone who had access to your documents. She studied my face. Who had that access, Mr. Morrison? I already knew the answer, and it made me sick. Anderson wasn't finished. She pulled up more documents. The account was opened in July. $125,000 deposited in August. She tapped the screen. 3 days later, $18,000 was withdrawn and transferred to a domestic account belonging to Skylar Morrison. I thought back 3 months. Skylar had suddenly seemed less stressed about money. Said Braden found some consulting work. Maybe your daughter-in-law thought it was legitimate income, Anderson said quietly. Maybe she was desperate enough not to ask questions. A knock interrupted. Another agent whispered to Anderson. Her face darkened. A lawyer just showed up demanding to see you. Very expensive. Very connected to Hayes. I didn't hire any lawyer, which means Hayes knows you're here and is making a move. She stood. Don't talk to that lawyer. Don't sign anything. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Morrison, this is Landon Brooks. Your son made promises he can't keep. Now you're all in danger. I can help. Meet me outside, back parking lot. 1 hour. Come alone. Before I could process it, Anderson returned, her phone ringing. She answered, listened, her face losing color. Braden's gone, she said. Transport vehicle was ambushed outside Riverside. 2 agents injured. What do you mean, gone? Either Hayes took him, or your son's working with whoever hit us. She looked grim. Everyone involved in this case is now in immediate danger. My phone buzzed again. Brooks, 30 minutes. Your daughter-in-law's immunity depends on what you do next. I stared at the message. How was Brooks texting me while I was under FBI protection? I need the bathroom, I told Anderson. Agent Wallace escorted me down the hall, his radio crackling with urgent chatter. Something was drawing their attention away. In the bathroom, I climbed onto the toilet and squeezed through the small window. 8-foot drop to the ground. I landed hard, stumbled, but I was out. A silver sedan waited in the back lot, engine running. As I approached, the driver's window lowered. Steel gray hair, sharp eyes. Mr. Morrison, get in quickly. I hesitated. Your son has about 6 hours before the FBI decides he's more useful as a defendant than a witness. I got in. Brooks drove through side streets, constantly checking mirrors. I'll be straight with you. Your son approached me 4 months ago with evidence against Hayes, wanted $200,000 for it. I paid a $50,000 deposit. Did he deliver? No. He was also negotiating with Hayes, playing us against each other. Hayes offered more, $300,000 and new identities. Brooks turned onto a dirt road. Braden made 3 complete evidence sets. 1 you found in your cabin, 1 in a safe deposit box we already have, 1 hidden in his house. Why should I help you? Because I have recordings proving Skylar Morrison knew nothing. Those recordings can save her from federal charges. We drove to Braden's neighborhood in Riverside. An unmarked car sat 3 houses down. Walk to the house, Brooks said. Use your key. The evidence is in the basement, behind the water heater. I walked up the path, heart pounding. Used my key. Braden had given me one for emergencies. Found the basement, located the water heater. Behind it, a removable panel. Inside, another waterproof container. Footsteps above. Voices. Mr. Morrison, FBI, we know you're in there. I grabbed the container and ran for the back door. Brooks's sedan was waiting. I threw myself inside. Drive! Behind us, shouts, flashlights. But we were gone. Open it, Brooks said. Verify it's real. I broke the seal. Inside were USB drives, documents, and something else. A handwritten letter from Skylar. Dad, if you're reading this, everything's gone wrong. I didn't know what Braden was doing until it was too late. When I confronted him, he said we'd all go to prison if anyone found out. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you to help us. Whatever happens, please take care of the children. The evidence in this box can destroy Hayes, but it can destroy us too. I trust you to do what's right. You always do. I looked up. Brooks was watching, his expression calculating. Now give it to me, he said. The recordings first, proving Skylar's innocent. Brooks smiled coldly. Mr. Morrison, there are no recordings. I never had any. You lied. I did what I needed to. Brooks reached inside his jacket. Give me that container. I thought about something I'd learned in 30 years of construction. Always have a backup plan. While Brooks had been talking, I'd noticed something. My phone had been buzzing with text messages the whole drive. The FBI had been tracking us. You know what I think, Brooks? I said calmly. I think you've been very foolish. The car doors burst open. FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. Brooks was pulled from the driver's seat, his face twisted with rage. Agent Anderson appeared at my door. You okay, Garrett? You were tracking us the whole time, every word. We saw Brooks's messages when we checked your phone. When he contacted you, we decided to let it play out. She helped me from the car. You did well, better than we expected. You used me as bait. We protected you. Agents were always within 50 feet. She paused. But yes, we used you. I'm sorry. I should have been angry. All I felt was exhausted relief. What happens to my family now? Garrett, your daughter-in-law was telling the truth. She was manipulated, threatened, kept in the dark. We're offering immunity for testimony. And Braden? He's cooperating. The kidnapping was staged. We needed all the players to move quickly. With your son's testimony and this evidence, we'll put Hayes away for decades. 3 months later, I stood in the living room of my Big Bear cabin examining the repaired wall. You couldn't tell anything had ever been hidden there. New wallpaper, perfectly hung. The same pattern Margaret had chosen, but fresh and bright, like things brought into the light. The trial had lasted 3 weeks. Hayes was convicted on 31 counts. Brooks got 15 years for conspiracy and attempted evidence tampering. Braden and Skylar testified for the prosecution in exchange for immunity. Outside, snow began falling on the lake. Inside, a fire crackled in the stone fireplace I'd built myself. This place had been violated, used to hide secrets. Now it was mine again. Clean, honest, safe. Braden and Skylar brought the kids up for Christmas. We sat by the fire, watching my grandchildren play with toys under the tree I'd cut from my own property. Dad, Braden said quietly, I know I can never make up for what I put you through. The lies, the danger, using your house without permission. You were scared, I said. You thought you were protecting your family. I was greedy, he said, and stupid, and I almost got us all killed. Skylar Morrison looked up from where she was helping our 8-year-old daughter with a puzzle. We both learned something important. Family isn't about keeping secrets to protect each other. It's about trusting each other enough to face problems together. My phone buzzed with a text from Braden. "Thank you for everything, Dad. I love you more than I can express." I texted back, "I love you too. And no more secrets. No more secrets. I promise." I believed him. Sometimes faith is a choice, a decision to trust again after betrayal. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized how close I came to losing my family forever. The lesson I learned: don't wait until secrets destroy everything you love. When someone you care about starts acting distant, scared, or evasive, reach out immediately. My advice: trust, but verify. Love deeply, but keep your eyes open. And never underestimate the power of patience and wisdom over panic and force. This cabin had been more than a house. It was my legacy, built with these hands, filled with memories of Margaret. When it was violated, I fought for it. When my family was threatened, I protected them. That's what fathers do. That's what builders do. We fix what's broken and make it stronger than before.